So this video is going to talk mainly about fleet compositions and quote-unquote meta ships. So if you guys are waifu gamers, this may not be the video for you, but I'm not going to stop you from watching it because that would be rude of me because I need those viewerships. So let's get right into this video. So today's video we're talking about the evolution of buffers in this game. So if you guys don't know, since the beginning of time, we've had many buffers since like the old school days that were really good. I'll give you some examples of some very good ships back in the day. For example, Enterprise here is one of the crazy ones. Lucky E. 70% chance to do double damage. Yeah, she was one of the first ever SSRs to come out. I believe probably the first one ever to come out. Because if you think Azur, you think World War II ships, you probably think Enterprise. So yeah, she was the first ever one. And I made a video about this last time. Helena scans. 60% chance for enemies to take 40% more damage. So you have all these ridiculous percentages. There's also other ones as well too, like Nagato's. Nagato has that crazy buff, 20% reload and 20% damage to IJN carriers. Utterly disgusting. We also have some of the nicher ones like Cleveland, if I can find her, and Kent with Assault Order. Now, it's a low percent rate, but it's a 25% damage increase for 8 seconds. That is really high. Really high. And don't forget, we also have other old ships as well too, such as Ark Royal with that crazy assault carrier. 25% chance to do double damage. So you have all these old ships that have been here since like day one of the game. And these percentages are like crazy, like double damage, 40%, 50% damage increase. These are really high. But as we progress further down the line, these percentages haven't been getting as high. So I believe probably like up until like 2020, and there's like maybe a couple of ships that give more than 20%, but for the most part, no ships give any sort of like 20% damage increase at all. I believe one of the highest ones would probably be like Vanguard, which quote unquote gives 18%, as well as Plymouth, who also gives 18%. But you never see ships past that 20% threshold nowadays. It's very rare. I know there's gonna be some ships in there like Bismarck, but I think she's like borderline 2020. But most ships nowadays you just won't see like good buffers, like very rarely. I think the last buffer that came out aside from Plymouth was like Emden, and even then Emden's buff is a 10% damage firepower increase to Ironblood ships. So even then, it's like these are very low percentages. Most of the time, you have buffers that give like 10%. I know there's a DD somewhere that gives like a 10%. Let me find it. It's one of the elite ones. If I can find her, it was one of the Italian ones. I think it was Nicoloso. Nicoloso gives like enemy takes like 8%, 10% more damage from if the enemy's like cruisers, stuff like that. You won't see high percentages nowadays. And the reason why I think so is because I want to think that Manju, back when the game first came out, didn't really think about damage percentages. They just wanted to make a game. And so when you have ships like Enterprise, Ark Royal, Helena, Cleveland, Kent, Nagato, Bismarck, you have these ships that give crazy buffs to the team, or like super hardcore self steroids. It's like, what were they thinking back then, right? Ranger as well too. Ranger, Tanakaze, ships like those that have like a very low percent proc rate to go utterly insane. I want to think that Manju back then were thinking like, whoa, these percentages are really high and we have to stop this. Now, that's not to say that this game hasn't gone through some power creep. It has gone through a lot of power creep since 2018. But a lot of the old buffers back then are still commonly used today. You'll see Helena, you'll see Nagato, Enterprise is still used, Ark Royal is still used. You will still see a lot of these buffers being used most of the time. So I think what they're trying to do as of right now is they're aiming more towards solo DPS ships. So like more ships nowadays have just more impact as a self-damage dealer compared to back then. Now, there are some like Enterprise Ark Royal that are really good damage dealers, albeit RNG, but still good damage dealers. But I think the trend as of right now is they're making it so it's less RNG if possible. Musashi came out with 50% proc rate or crit rate, but it's not as bad. But they're trying to make it so there's more ships that are more geared towards being self-sustainable. So this makes it so if you need a ship, you can just slot it in and just it does work. I believe that's the mindset as of right now for the developer team, because if you have a lot of ships that have self-sustainability and are self-sufficient, then you don't have to think much about team compositions. You just run with whatever and it works. There's also the idea that if they add a very powerful limited ship into an event banner and people miss it, then it's probably going to be bad. Like imagine if they add Helena to a USS event and she was limited time offer. If you didn't get her there, that's going to be a really bad loss for people that want to use Helena, because she's not available for another like 2 years or something, right? So that's actually bad as well too. So this self-sustain idea is actually really good. I think it's a good idea to do that. This makes it so less ships don't have to depend on RNG as much. And if you need a ship, it is slotted in and it does work. However, the issue with this is that it's hard to run ships that have like more synergy together. Like that's one thing I like about when it comes to like team building in games, is that there's synergy. Like a good example, not the best example because it's really broken, would be Shinano and Hakuryu. Shinano buffs Hakuryu. Hakuryu has a buff as well too. They both get powered up by Nagato. It's a really good team composition. Having more of these is actually really good because it opens up more ideas that you can try out. Now I'm not saying this is like a good example because Shinano Hakuryu is like the god carrier combo, right? It's 2 peas in a pod. You just can't get rid of them. They're really, really good. But like there's other examples as well too, like Vanguard, Duke of York, Musashi. Everyone just powers up Musashi to do like a lot of damage. You can do that. But this is the good part about having buffers, but it's also bad because if you have a buffer in your team, then there's a good chance someone else gets dropped out. And if you're a meta gamer, then having a ship drop out is kind of a bad feeling, because then it's like, all right, well, I was using the ship for the longest time, now I don't need her anymore. Feels kind of bad, right? Like Ulrich von Hutzen has been around since earlier this year. 9 months later, kicked out from Musashi. So, to me, the best way to fix this is, I've said this probably numerous times, is they have to make content that excels for building proper fleet comps, as well as making it so every ship has a fair chance for competing for a slot in that party. Now, again, if you're a waifu gamer, it doesn't really matter, but a good example is there's 2 things that comes to mind. So they can either, this game has been out for long enough, right? You can either do a 4-4 composition, like 4 ships in the back, 4 ships in the front. Now, I will say this is going to be insanely power creeped. It is. It's going to be utterly insane power creep. So this is actually not the right direction when it comes to power spiking a game, because opening up 2 more slots to a fleet is going to lead to a lot of power creep, and it's going to be really scary at that point. Another example is if they want to get technical with the game, they could do a swap fleet, a swap content, or a swap combat. What I mean by this is, if you guys are aware of like the typical JRPG, or like some kind of like, I think the Final Fantasy gacha game or whatever, or like maybe Brave Frontier or something, but like basically you go into a sortie and you have 2 fleets. So you have your first fleet and you have your second fleet, right? So let's say your first fleet, let's say you're running like IJN carriers or something, and you have this setup stocked up to do a lot of damage. You have all your buffers, you have like Helena, you have your Kazugumo, you have your series, and this fleet basically is just meant to do a lot of damage, right? Oh, but after I blow my load, what happens after this? Well, you swap to the other fleet because they're on cooldown right now. So you have like a tank fleet or something, or you go into your battleship fleet. Now, after they're done, like you'll see a timer up here somewhere. It says like, okay, your carrier is ready again. Swap back to the other fleet, blow your load there, and then there's gonna be a cooldown or whatever, but swap back to your other fleet. This makes it so you can open up more ideas, and you won't have to be stacking this. Let's just run all buffers or something, and just like ruin the game or whatever, right? You can run like a full tank setup to like just stall out for carrier damage. You can also run just more damage in general. Now we can have like tanks be viable, more damage vanguards be viable, and now not just stack up like all buffers, because right now the best way to do a lot of damage is just stacking up a lot of buffers. You have like Kazugumo, Helena, a tank or Sirius, Shinano, Hakuryu, and then Musashi does damage right here. It's just we're just stacking up damage buffs. That's about it. That's how you do more damage in this game, just stacking up more buffs. So in order to alleviate this, because we have been noticing a trend in smaller percentages for buffs, except self buffs. Self buffs are still like 20%, 25%. It's just team buffs have gotten a lot smaller compared to what it has been like 4 years ago. Now, I will say like Vanguard has a really nice buff, but she's just replacement for Duke of York. Duke of York goes 12% already. She does like 18% for backline, 10% for Vanguards. So it's a slight increase, but it's still like just a replacement. So the evolution of buffs just tells me that Manju learned from their mistake in the past about how crazy some of the percentages are. Now, I'm not saying that you should up the percentages for this game in particular, because 20%, 30% is getting kind of scary. But having games like having ships that are like 10%, 5%, it's like this doesn't really like contribute that much. It's like very minuscule damage upgrades with probably like very terrible uptime. Like Helena Meta is like 6% uptime. Rune Moose also like 6% uptime. It's like very, very small niche percentages with small uptime. So to me, I think that percentages could be upped a little more. The issue is there's going to be power creep, and to some people that are struggling with current content already, that's bad. I get it. But this also opens up more opportunity for other ships to be used. Like as of right now, if you have Helena at still at 40%, if you're using like meta setups or whatever, Helena stays. She's not getting replaced. So if you have more options available that doesn't stack with current buffers, then this opens up more idea. But then like you just stack up more fleets, and then we just have more problems after that. So personally, I think there are opportunities to add more better buffers to this game. The issue is balancing out the power creep that's going to come with it, as well as not making it so one ship is just that overwhelmingly powerful that they just stick here forever, like Helena. So that's how I feel about the evolution of buffs. Let me know what you guys think. There is rooms to go for many things to be added to the game. Composition wise, other styles of game mode that can be implemented so other ships can be shown on Spotlight without having just all buffers 24/7, because that's just how the game rolls. So thank you guys for watching. Comments below, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.